It started as an ordinary afternoon near Buckingham Palace, tourists snapping photos, the royal guards standing still in their signature red coats, the rhythm of London calm and predictable. But then, a moment shattered that calm. A young man, arrogant, laughing, kicked the wheelchair of an elderly veteran who had served this very nation decades ago. The crowd gasped, cameras turned, and what happened next stunned everyone. Because the royal guards, those silent symbols of discipline, suddenly moved, and not in the way anyone expected. What unfolded next wasn't just a reaction, it was a royal statement. One that echoed across the world, reminding us all what honor truly looks like. If this story already has your heart beating a little faster, make sure to hit that like button. It helps more people discover powerful real-life moments like this one. Subscribe if you love stories that mix courage, emotion, and royal honor. And don't forget to share this with someone who still believes in respect and humanity. Now, let's uncover what really happened that day. It was a bright, brisk afternoon near Buckingham Palace, the kind tourists dream about. The sky carried that soft London blue, and the air smelled faintly of roasted nuts from the nearby vendors. Crowds gathered by the black iron gates, phones in hand, waiting for a glimpse of the royal guards. They stood there, motionless as always, red tunics, tall bearskin hats, rifles at their sides, unflinching, almost statues carved from pride itself. And then, amid the crowd, an elderly man in a wheelchair rolled slowly toward the edge of the path. His jacket bore faded medals, the kind that tell stories of bravery too heavy for words. His face was weathered, but his eyes, they were alive, warm, and kind. He was a veteran, not just any veteran, though few knew it at the time. He had served in the Falklands War. He had seen comrades fall, carried others to safety, and once saluted the Queen herself. For him, this visit wasn't about spectacle, it was about memory and respect. He wanted to see the guards one last time before returning to the small care home where he now lived quietly. But then, the peace broke. A young man, perhaps in his 20s, swaggered through the crowd, laughing too loudly, phone in hand. His friends trailed behind, snickering, filming everything like it was some twisted prank show. You know that uneasy silence when something wrong is about to happen? The crowd felt it. The veteran, unaware, had rolled slightly into the path where the guards would later march. He was in no one's way, but to the prankster, it was an opportunity. "Move it, old man," the young man sneered, before, without warning, he kicked the wheelchair. The sound of the impact was sharp, cruel. The veteran's medals clinked against his chest as his chair jolted forward. The crowd gasped in horror. Someone shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" The veteran didn't fall, but the look on his face, that quiet mix of shock and heartbreak, hit harder than any words could. And for a split second, even the guards seemed frozen. Then, something extraordinary happened. The nearest royal guard, the one who had been standing at attention mere feet away, moved. You could hear the scrape of his boot against the stone. His eyes locked onto the bully, his jaw tight. It was rare, almost unheard of, for a guard to break formation unless under serious threat. But this was something else entirely. The guard took one sharp step forward, the rifle angled slightly, not threateningly, but with unmistakable authority. His voice, crisp and commanding, cut through the air. "Step back now." Every camera turned toward him. The crowd fell dead silent. The young man, once full of swagger, stumbled backward, his smirk faltering. He mumbled something about just joking, but his voice trembled. The guard didn't flinch. Then, with surprising gentleness, the soldier turned to the veteran. He bent despite the strict posture they are trained never to break, and asked quietly, "Are you all right, sir?" Those who were there say that moment felt unreal. The sight of a royal guard, the very image of stoicism kneeling beside a war hero, it sent chills down spines. The veteran nodded, still shaken. His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm fine, lad. Thank you." The guard's eyes softened. You shouldn't have to deal with that. It wasn't a scene from a movie. It was real, witnessed by dozens, filmed by a few, and felt by everyone present. Within minutes, palace security arrived. The young man was detained, his friends silent now, their phones lowered. But the moment that stayed in everyone's mind wasn't the arrest. It was that single act, a guard, breaking protocol not out of anger but respect. And here's where it gets even more remarkable. That guard didn't know who the veteran was. He had no idea that the man he helped had once served under his own grandfather's regiment. That detail, that connection, would come out later when the palace investigated the incident. But in that moment it didn't matter. What mattered was something deeper, instinctive. A recognition between soldiers, across generations. A silent salute from one man of service to another. As the guard stood back up and resumed position, the crowd erupted, not in chaos but in applause, not loud but respectful. A ripple of gratitude.
The morning of the ceremony was crisp, golden, and quiet. Autumn leaves fluttered gently along the mall, that iconic road leading straight to Buckingham Palace. The crowds gathered once again, just as they had weeks earlier, but this time there was no tension, no cruelty. This time they came for gratitude. News had broken days before. His Royal Highness Prince William will be presenting a special commendation for exemplary service and civil honor, an award rarely given, almost never outside of military ranks. The recipients, Corporal Daniel Reeve and Staff Sergeant Rhett Arthur Wells. As the palace gates opened, cameras rolled, but there was a sense of reverence, like everyone knew they were about to witness something that would be remembered for decades. Arthur arrived first, his wheelchair gleaming, medals polished, wearing his old uniform jacket with quiet pride. The cheering crowd parted respectfully. Some saluted, some cried, and then came Daniel, standing tall, in full ceremonial attire, rifle at his side, but his face softer than usual. The kind of look that says, "I still can't believe this is happening." They met at the foot of the palace steps. Prince William stepped forward, shaking both their hands firmly. His words carried that calm, steady authority he is known for, but there was warmth, too. "When service meets compassion," he began, "you remind the world what true honor looks like." The audience listened in silence. "Corporal Reeve," the prince continued, "your actions that day reflected not defiance, but duty to the values this uniform represents. And Sergeant Wells, your life of service continues to inspire. This country owes you both more than words can say." Then, in a rare gesture, William placed a hand on Arthur's shoulder and said softly, "On behalf of my family and my grandmother's memory, thank you for your service." It was a powerful nod to Queen Elizabeth II, who had always held veterans close to her heart. The crowd, moved beyond measure, erupted into respectful applause. You could see it in the faces, young and old alike, the mix of admiration and gratitude. For a moment, it wasn't just about one veteran or one guard. It was about all of them. Every soldier who'd stood in the rain, every veteran who'd been forgotten, every act of kindness done quietly without cameras. Prince William then turned to both men and presented them each with a small, silver medal engraved with the words, "For honor beyond duty." A new royal commendation, created for this very event. The national anthem began to play. Arthur saluted, his trembling hand steady with pride. Daniel stood beside him, eyes glistening, the kind of tear a soldier never admits to shedding. The world watched, and for those few minutes, the noise of division, politics, and cynicism faded. What replaced it was something purer, unity. Later that day, interview followed. Arthur, humble as ever, told reporters, "I didn't expect all this fuss. I just wanted to see the gods one last time. I never imagined one of them would stand up for me." Daniel said only this, "Respect isn't a rule, it's a choice. I just made mine." Simple words, profound meaning. By evening, the clip of the ceremony had gone viral. Not in outrage, not in controversy, but in hope. Thousands of comments flooded in again. "The world needs more Daniels. This made me cry. Respect is still alive. This is the Britain I want my kids to see." And then came one more post, this time from the official Kensington Royal account. Kindness is never weakness. To serve with heart is to serve with honor. The Prince and Princess of Wales. It was a royal seal on a story that began with cruelty and ended with compassion. As weeks passed, Arthur's story inspired others. Donations to veteran support charities spiked. Schools began using the video in lessons about respect and empathy. Even the young man who had caused the incident publicly apologized, volunteering to help at a local veteran center. Arthur forgave him. "He's young," he said softly. "Better he learned from it now." It wasn't weakness. It was grace. And that's the thing about true humanity. It doesn't shout. It doesn't march with flags or demand recognition. Sometimes it's quiet, standing tall in a red coat. Sometimes it sits humbly in a wheelchair, smiling at the crowd. But when those two worlds meet, duty and kindness, it reminds us that even in a world that feels colder by the day, decency still shines bright. If this story moved you, even a little, don't let it end here. Hit that like button to help share a message the world needs right now, that strength and kindness can live in the same heart. Subscribe for more real, human stories that prove compassion still exists. And in the comments, tell us this, what does honor mean to you? Because sometimes the smallest act of respect becomes the biggest lesson of all. And for the first time in a long while, the veteran smiled. A reporter nearby, moved to tears, whispered to her camera, This is what true British honor looks like." Later that night, the footage spread like wildfire across social media. The clip was less than a minute long, but it carried more heart than most films ever do. The caption read, "Royal Guard breaks formation to defend veteran." And the comments poured in. Thousands, then millions. People from around the world wrote about the moment. Soldiers, families, even royals themselves. The message was the same. Respect never goes out of style. But what no one knew yet was that this wasn't the end of the story. Because just days later, something happened inside the palace walls. Something that would turn this quiet act of respect into an unforgettable royal moment. Be why the next morning, the clip had spread to every corner of the internet. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all flooded with the same powerful image. A royal guard kneeling beside a veteran's wheelchair, the bully standing off to the side, shame written all over his face. But what most people didn't realize was how rare that moment truly was. The royal guards are trained to be symbols of control, living statues of discipline. They endure heat, rain, exhaustion, and endless streams of tourists, all without a single twitch of emotion. Their orders are clear, never break formation. Yet that guard did, and for the right reason. Inside the royal household, the event was already under review. Not in a disciplinary sense, but in disbelief. Was the footage real? Did one of their guards truly kneel out of compassion? When they confirmed it, the response wasn't anger. It was pride. Quiet, dignified pride. A senior officer was quoted saying, "He didn't break discipline. He redefined it." Meanwhile, outside the palace gates, something unexpected began to unfold. Crowds grew larger, not for the changing of the guard, but to thank them. People brought flowers, small flags, even handwritten notes addressed to the guard who helped the veteran. And that veteran, his name was Arthur Wells, 82 years old, former staff sergeant, decorated for bravery during the Falklands. He'd been living in a care home near Hounslow, quietly, rarely speaking about his service. That day near the palace had been his first outing in months. He'd wanted to feel close to his past again, to salute those carrying the torch forward. But fate had written him a different kind of reunion. When Arthur saw the video replayed on TV, he barely recognized himself. "I didn't think anyone would notice," he told a local reporter with a shaky smile. "But that lad, that guard, he made me feel seen again." And the guard? His name was Corporal Daniel Reeve, 28, served 6 years in the British Army before joining the Royal Guard, known among his peers for his composure and quiet integrity. When the palace requested his report, he kept it short and humble. "A man was disrespected. I acted out of duty, to my uniform and to my conscience." Those words made their way up the chain of command, and eventually across the desk of a royal aide, one who showed them directly to Prince William. Now, here's where the story took a royal turn. Prince William, himself a former air ambulance pilot and advocate for veterans, was deeply moved. He reportedly paused mid-briefing, rewatched the clip twice, and simply said, "Find them both." Within 48 hours, arrangements were quietly made. Arthur Wells was invited to the palace grounds, not through the front gates with the tourists, but through a private entrance reserved for honored guests. And waiting for him there was Corporal Reeve. No fanfare, no cameras, just two men standing across from each other in the quiet of a royal courtyard. Arthur's hand trembled slightly on his wheelchair as a young guard approached. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Arthur said softly, "You did more than you think, lad. You didn't just help me, you reminded people what decency looks like." Reeve smiled, eyes glistening. "So, I only did what any soldier should." "Not every soldier would have done it in front of the palace," Arthur replied. "Takes courage to care." The two men saluted, one sitting, one standing, and in that moment, time itself seemed to pause. The meeting was brief but unforgettable, and though no press was invited, a palace aide later described it as one of the most human scenes ever witnessed behind those walls. Meanwhile, the internet continued to buzz. Viewers dissected every frame of the original video, praising the guard's composure, his restraint, his compassion. Comment sections overflowed with emotion. This gave me faith in humanity again. Respect to that soldier, true British pride. "I showed this to my granddad. He cried." But among the millions of reactions, one comment stood out. It came from an account that few recognized, a subtle, verified one. It simply read, "Decency is the highest form of strength. C." Royal watchers were quick to note that the single letter C was often used by Catherine, Princess of Wales. Whether it was her or not, the sentiment echoed across the world. By then, the palace could no longer stay silent. They released a rare public statement acknowledging the event. The royal household commends the professionalism and compassion shown by members of the Guard in upholding the values of honor, respect, and service. That single line, short, formal, yet deeply symbolic, carried weight. It was, in royal terms, a standing ovation. And yet, even as the headlines began to fade, one last surprise was still waiting for both Arthur and Daniel. Because behind closed doors, plans were being made, not just to thank them privately, but to celebrate them publicly. Something grand, something royal, something that would turn a random act of courage into a national moment of unity.